sit in our curriculum committee, and I am Patrice Faison. I'm the Chief Academic Officer. Dr. Lovedewalt actually will run this meeting, and I will turn it over to her.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining us today. So on the agenda, we are going to be talking about our suggestions that we are making to the policy committee for selection of instructional materials, and then policy 3210, parental inspection. And then at the end, we were going to have some teachers share an update to us as curriculum committee members about our newest adoptions, but 3 out of the 4 of them are actually already here, and so I think what we're going to do is shift that to the beginning of the agenda, if everybody's okay starting off hearing from some of our awesome teachers.
Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah, okay. So if, we'll introduce ourselves when we get up there. So, come on up. So like Dr. Faison said, I'm Lovedewalt. I'm the Director of Curriculum and Instruction, and I want to let these awesome new Hanover County teachers introduce themselves.
I'm Lisa Crosby. I teach 2nd grade at Eaton.
I'm Lindsay Carter. I teach 3rd grade at Leonard Park. I'm Sarah Mendoza. I actually teach 7th grade at Noble.
Sorry, I had the wrong grade.
It's okay.
And so we've got some new adoptions, Wit and Wisdom, as well as Study Sync, and then Desmos in math, that teachers are now about a quarter of the way through the school year using, and then Eureka, which we adopted a few years ago, and then switched to Eureka Squared. And so these are, so these are our awesome teachers who are making that happen on the ground for our students. So
Can you just point out that those are different adoptions for different grade levels? Those teachers don't have to all do that.
that is a great thing to point out. Yes. So Wit and Wisdom is for our elementary, K-5, and Study Sync is the knowledge building counterpart at middle school. Desmos is happening at middle school math as well as in our Math 1 classes. So I think the first question that we kind of have for you as a committee is just real general, like how's it going and what is the impact that you're seeing for your students in any of these new adoptions? What's your kind of, how are the kids doing is really the first question. You want to start?
I'll speak first to Eureka Squared, our math program. This is our 2nd year. What I love most about Eureka is that I feel like my students are better math thinkers. They're able to problem solve. It's not so focused on just an algorithm, getting an answer. It's more focused on them as mathematical thinkers. So I really enjoy that and watching them kind of go through. And the other big piece about Eureka that I really like, and I think the kids benefit from, is just the spiral part of Eureka that's naturally built in. There's a fluency component that starts every lesson, and within that fluency component especially, we see a lot of spiraling back and forth through the different things that we've already covered. At the beginning of the year, it's spiral things from 2nd grade that they're going to need to be more successful in some of our first modules. That the math, I feel very strongly about building mathematical thinkers, not just can you get the right answer, that kind of thing. Do you guys want to say anything about math?
I can just say ditto, even though it's a different program with the Desmos. The nice thing about Desmos is it lines up with our previous curriculum for the most part, which was the open up or illustrative math. It is a little bit different, so there is a learning curve. I know I've been using it, my partner, my other 7th grade teacher, we've been using it for a while and we love it. It is a learning curve for the other teachers because it is so different. And like she was saying, the order, you see, I understand now why it's in the crazy order, not the way that I taught it for 20 years. So again, it does take time for teachers, and I think that's important to point out, that it's not just something, even though it's all there, you can't just pull it up. You have to, like even now when I teach a class, the first class, the next class is so much better because I'm like, I understand it. Even though I'm looking at the manual, it makes sense from the kids' questions. And they love it too. And I will say, we appreciate the workbooks because it's still important to have the paper computer connection.
Yeah, thank you so much. And then I think, the other question is just sort of, this committee is really also about helping to solve problems and helping to think, through our strategic planning, and how do we continue to make sure that curriculum benefits our students and is helpful for teachers as they implement it. So kind of the flip side, in addition to how are the kids doing, is kind of what suggestions or next steps do you have for us? You guys have been through a lot of PD this year, especially our elementary folks with Wit and Wisdom. We've got some coaching that's happening at some schools with Eureka and with Wit and Wisdom and Study Sync. Those teachers all got to come together and do some unpacking. So do you have next step for us, suggestions of, what, in a perfect world, what else would you need to feel really supported in the implementation of this?
I think that with the mic here, our instructional coaches have really come through with finding out because we're just walking through this together. Everybody's just doing it together. And I love the knowledge-based curriculum. You just don't know what you don't know until you walk through it. So I feel like those periodic times where we can just say, just like we're doing here today, what's going well? What are we struggling with? Is it a pacing thing? Is it going to, where are we going? And just to have those conversations with other teachers. We have them in our PLCs and with our instructional coaches, but I think, even I talk to other teachers from other schools, and we're ahead, so they're like, what's coming? And I'm making people posters and stuff. So, and I've got little kids that are in second grade in my neighborhood, and they're not at my school, and they're like, we're in this book, Miss Causey, what book are you in? So it's really easy to see how, they're doing the implementation. I'm proud of all of our teachers for just doing it, because that is most of the battle. Our kids are going to do whatever we're excited about doing. And but I have to say that I am proud of the teachers that I'm teaching with, that we're just, we have jumped in with both feet and we're doing it. And it's a great program.
Okay.
Other next steps from either of you?
Well, I have to put a plug, because I spoke about Eureka, but what I kind of love about Eureka, I'm learning that Wit and Wisdom follows a lot of the same things as far as the spiraling and just the rigor. If you would have asked me, we just finished, my kids wrote their module 1 focusing task question, so it was the second little kind of chunk of lessons within our big unit. And if you'd have told me by this point in the year that they're going to be writing 2-paragraph response with topic sentences and evidences, that's a fact, a definition, a detail, I'd have laughed in your face. I'm not kidding. And so when I graded them, so I graded them over the weekend, and my math, I was just oh my gosh, they are rising to the occasion. So I think the growth, and I think us as the teachers just trusting the process, and I think knowing Eureka and how it was hard and such a shift for so many people, that now that we're trusting that process to maybe hold on and trust that for Wit and Wisdom too. And about the grade levels in different schools and things, even my own personal children, he has a friend that goes to Porter's Neck Elementary, and they were in the car after a soccer game chit-chatting, and they were talking about what they were learning in ELA, and it was the coolest thing. They're oh man, I just read that article too, and I know that. So they're just making such great connections. So I just I don't know that I really answered the question completely, but I had to kind of put it's hard. What we're doing with Wisdom is hard.
Yep.
Just a few minutes, and I want you guys to make her feel welcome.
So I'm gonna give you the mic actually to introduce yourself, and we know teachers are coming right from school, so we get it. We know that carpool line is no joke here. Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Katarina Katsikis. I'm an 8th grade ELA teacher at Myrtle Grove Middle School. I don't mean to look all red, but I didn't feel like it was gonna be like this.
Yeah. So we were just talking about kind of next steps, and before I open it up for them to ask some questions, I just want to know if you had any feedback from, the PD that's been offered. I know we're only kind of one quarter into it so far, but your experiences with Study Sync so far, do you have any suggestions or kind of next steps of things that you would recommend for us? I'm going to give you back the mic.
The mic makes it so official. So personally, I love Study Sync, and I can only say this is my 4th year teaching, so when I first came in, it was COVID, so this is like the first year I feel like the curriculum has been really easy to differentiate for all my students. Like for my ML students, like we can lower the Lexile for them for readings, and even for, I brought the workbook, but I won't bring it. I brought student examples. But even for the workbook annotations, it's so easy for them to give them like a certain skill and be like, let's see how this is annotated, or focus skills for that lesson. And that's easy to differentiate too between all of my different classes, having them focus on a certain element. I just think the differentiation in it is beautiful, love it. And it makes it easy to, as teachers, to really hone in on, like for masteries, for example, for previewing a reading in my mastery classes and using that vocabulary and the bolded and using the context clues. I know, I love it, if you couldn't tell.
Well, I know they were shy to give us some next steps, but I think also as a... Oh, yeah.
I act shy and like I don't know what I want to say, but I do usually have a lot to say, so I'm sorry. I know, I'm sorry. So I will say, last year I was able to participate in the Eureka PLC planning, where I went with a group of 3rd grade teachers mixed from throughout the county, and someone from Eureka shared, and we really got to dive into each module, and that was so beneficial that I was able to convince my principal to also let me bring my own personal teammates so that we can have that collaboration time together. And I feel like outside of just PLCs, with my own instructional coach who's doing a fabulous job also, and my teammates, it would be really nice to have some of those cross conversations. So like moving forward and thinking about how we can open up that PLC topic for reading as well, kind of like we did for math last year, I think would be beneficial for everybody.
I see lots of head nods, and on October 31st, if you've got any science teachers, they're going to be doing that during our PLC day, but that's good next steps for us to have for math and ELA too. I want to make sure we have time for everything else, but I want to make sure committee members, if you have specific questions for our teachers, these are our experts, they're with our kids every day, so if y'all have specific questions to ask them, and then we'll keep moving through the agenda.
I have some questions, but I'll hold on. Oh, maybe start us off.
Start us off here.
Well, and I think my mic is fine here.
Okay.
First, I just want to remind those of us here that these wonderful ladies, along with our other educators, selected this curriculum. That's why you see this excitement, right? Because this is something they chose to do, and I really want to say thank you for that. And it just kind of validates the process of allowing you guys to select, right? I'm so glad we could do that, and we had that opportunity. So I want to say that. I also really love hearing about the need for the cross collaboration, because like Dr. DeWalt said, we are starting something now called professional learning networks. And with those professional learning networks, that is exactly what it is. We're going to have our teachers come and share. So we're testing the waters, because it's not mandatory, right? It's just something you have to want to come to. So we're testing the waters with science. So we're really excited. It sounds like that would be a good idea. But I do have 2 questions. One, has anyone received their coaching session yet for, you received your coaching session? Can you talk to us about that?
So I think ours was last week.
Last week.
Yeah, last week. And a team of people came in the room, and I guess, and kind of watched, and then some of the feedback that I guess it was more for our coaches and our admin teams to learn more about how they can better support us. But some feedback was also shared with us too, just to kind of help us understand, because pacing has been an issue a little bit, like trying to keep on track, and then knowing, which types of lessons are ones that we can stretch out. Like if we're getting hung up in the wonder stage in Wit and Wisdom, and we're taking 2 days to notice and wonder, okay, something's going on here. That's a spot where we can speed things up a little bit. But when we're in the reveal and we're really digging deep into the I guess the standard part of what we're learning about, that's where we would slow down. So that was something that was was shared with me, I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like really thinking about the purpose of each stage of reading, and within the lessons to know when to kind of speed up and slow down. So I look forward to hopefully having more of those, and even being able to maybe participate, kind of like we did for Eureka also, where it was somebody on our team, but like we all went to watch a lesson, and then we, provided feedback and did that kind of stuff too. So I feel like, that's beneficial.
Yeah.
We just discussed today on our grade level that during our, we have one day a week during our power up time that we have, the AIG teacher comes in, so we are actually going to go to each other's classrooms during that 30 minutes and just watch whatever it is they're doing, because it is priceless. And we learn from each other, and we pick up little things like this, and how to engage our kids, and those little things are huge.
I have one more question, because our board members are big advocates for you, and one thing they say is, we've got to take some things off of our teachers. We've got to stop putting things on them. And my question for you is, you guys know what is really required and things. If you could, do you have something that we could remove that wouldn't impact your teaching, but would help you and give you more time, that we have control over? I'm asking because
It's out, so.
and that was not the email, because I really want to make sure that we listen to you. But the one thing that I've heard is, I think you really value a lot of the things you have, but if there is something out there that you think will not impact your teaching and would give you a lot of additional time.
While you're thinking.
It may be school-based, but my principal has worked diligently in relieving us from some duties so that we can have planning time.
Yeah.
Oh, so that we can have planning time. And again, that may just be a school-based thing, but I feel like everything that I do during the day is, I'm teaching. There's not a lot of downtime. There's not a lot of added things that I'm doing that's not instructional. That's for myself.
Teachers are. Yes.
Thank you for saying that. What we hear, I think all the board members hear, is how stretched out you are. And in our town hall meeting, regardless of the numbers, one of the consistencies, at least for every group that we met with, at least on my end, was support. And we're stretched out. I even heard teachers say they'd quit teaching to be a TA so they didn't have to carry anything home with them. And
That's impossible.
please be honest and tell us what we can do, because without you, we're nothing. And we do appreciate what you do, I promise you, from the bottom of our hearts. But you got to be honest with us and don't worry about coming after you. We need to know what we can do that helps you in any shape, form, and or fashion.
So the PLCs are great, but it being mandated on a Wednesday or mandated at a particular time or scheduled at a particular time does not work for my partner and I. Now, she and I are across from each other, which is very nice. We're PLCing all day, every day. And just like today, we sat in my room. I have a student teacher, so we're a little more structured now, to help her. But I don't need to have to sit with her every Tuesday. I need time for me to go help another teacher with Desmos that's not using it, like to get out to their class. My week this week, Monday was a parent conference during my planning. Tuesday, what day is it? Wednesday. Tuesday, I think I had planning. I don't remember. I think I did. Today, I had to sit with, we were planning, but it's different planning, mandated to sit in somebody's room together than it is like, I can run across the hall. Hey, what did we do last year? What was the problem with this? And that happens naturally. It's not on a Wednesday afternoon, every Wednesday. Tomorrow, we have either grade level or MTSS. I don't know what. So Thursdays, we don't have planning. Monday, I didn't have planning. Tuesday, I had planning. Wednesday, I sort of had planning, kind of. Tomorrow, I won't. Friday, I'm going to be tired. So I'm just being honest. I'm a positive teacher. I love it. I'm happy. But it does get to be a bit much. And I'm lucky because I'm single with no children. I can work on the weekends, and I prefer to work on the weekends because I'm not interrupted. People with children, people with families, they don't have that privilege. So it's a lot during the week sometimes, just some of the mandated stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm not being negative.
No. My biggest question, I wouldn't have asked if I didn't want to know. I would have asked if I want to know. I want them to know that we're not afraid to ask the tough questions. And this is a couple things that I think about with that is I think about my biggest question is, are we doing the PLC the way, and this is, I'm gonna be honest, the way it's intended, because you shouldn't be, it's like you're looking at the standard and my kids now and what they need, right? And for those meetings, so I just wonder,
It's a form that says, what are they learning?
Yeah,
what
exactly.
will we
So
do if
the
they
kids-
don't learn? Today, we planned our unit for next. What will we do if they don't learn? We'll keep doing what we've done. So, I mean, just filling out a paper.
But see, I guess, and that's the
Yeah.
question I have. And
So
I would
maybe
ask,
we're not doing it right.
any other thoughts about PLCs?
So on my grade level, I have 3 brand new teachers to the school, 3 brand new teachers to second grade, and 1 brand new teacher. So I feel like I have to be extra prepared in order to be the leader that they need me to be within my team. But the PLC forms, it's a good guide. We have a tracker that keeps us on like, oh, that's off, that's off topic, or timekeeper, or we've made a questionnaire just within our grade level so that we don't spend our whole time answering questions that can be answered just whenever. But that PLC time is priceless, and we get a lot done. One day we spend just digging deep into the curriculum, like what's working, what's not, how are you going to teach this strategy, how are you going to teach this, how much time are you going to spend on that, and then the second day we spend on our data, looking at how our kids, we bring samples and we look at how our kids, well, our children for the most part did well on this, well, what did you do that I didn't do? That's our discussion, and it's a great conversation. And this is my 26th year of teaching, and this is the second year that I've ever had time like this with my colleagues, and it's valuable.
And I don't want to take the whole time with PLC, right?
Yep.
But we had a positive, and we had one who did, so we'll always have that. What other things when you think about his question?
Well, my thing is, so I'm at Winter Park. We're a small school, but we have a nice ESL population, and also within my own personal class, or no grade level, excuse me, I've got multiple children who do not come to me reading as third graders. So, with Wit and Wisdom, like that's one thing that I have struggled with is I'm sitting here with some of these kids for 70 minutes in a block, and yes, I feel like sometimes I'm doing all the heavy lifting, and I'm like, wait a minute, why am I exhausted after this lesson? You should be, not me. But so it's just figuring out the balance of like how to scaffold, how much to scaffold, and then it comes down to like sometimes like it's people. Like if I had another body in my room, or like we have something we call at our school Dive, and we have power up time. So like Dive is like school wide. Every employee on deck, and we're all pulling a group and doing something that particular student needs. And in some of our grade levels, not just speaking for myself, but some of especially first grade, I know, like their groups have like 12, 15, 18 kids. Like that's a class of these kids who are off grade level. But it's like we just don't have the manpower. So can you give me more people? Or so I think it's like I feel like I'm teaching, like there's nothing I would give up during the day, but if I had more support to help me deliver some of those things, like I feel like we'd be more successful.
All right. And I didn't mean to take over, and I know we have other things, but I just
Can I
wanted
ask a quick question?
Sure.
So, coming from being a substitute teacher, You know, sometimes it's hard to turn your class over, you know, and prepare them. Do you think that the new curriculums that we've selected are substitute friendly? Like they could come, like, remember when Foundations first came out? You know, and the first time I went in as a substitute without having any of the training, it was like, okay, you know, making all the sounds and doing all this kind of stuff. But so do you think that the wit and wisdom and, you know, your I know Eureka because I went through the summer class one time with the groups to learn a little bit more. But do you think it's substitute friendly, that you can feel comfortable when a sub comes into your classroom?
Middle school, I'm going to start with y'all over here at middle school.
Okay, personally with Study Sync, I do think it's sub-friendly as well. I don't know, me and my partner teacher have just made a really good structure of the curriculum in our classroom. So like day one is a mini lesson, then we'll do our first read, then we'll do skills lessons, then our close reads. So even if I'm absent, I know my students are still gonna know what to expect on that day. And because it is an online resource as well, it just makes it, and that they're all one-to-one, it does make it a lot easier for at least my grade level or my school.
If your sub has a login, then it's sub-friendly.
Okay.
You can put everything you need into what you need.
I think subs now do have logins, so that makes it much easier.
I think we're definitely learning how to navigate with Wit and Wisdom because it's a 90-minute block. That's a lot for a sub to come in and digest and then go teach themselves. And so we're really collaborating with teachers and having some teachers try out some things for us and tell us what's working and what's not, and trying to find suggestions because we know that I as a sub wouldn't want to pick up and have that Wit and Wisdom lesson because I wouldn't feel quite
And go like,
qualified
holy
to
cow,
do it.
well, you know,
Yeah.
where do I start?
But are there ways that we can get into the text in a different way with a sub? I think absolutely. But also we do have an online platform with NSYNC with some digital lessons. And so we're just trying to navigate how do we get that to our students if we have a sub.
Especially with your full-time subs.
Yes.
They might be an easier target.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because they're the ones who would do it most often.
Yeah, that's a great
exactly.
point.
Excellent point.
I think
Well,
it does mostly be difficult.
Yeah.
But with the blended, with the workbook and the flexibility of the program, planning for a sub would not be an interruption.
And keep in mind, we have the type of teachers that they really don't want their subs to be showing that new material anyway.
No,
so
you wouldn't be,
I
well, you know, you never show the new material, right.
So there you go.
Well, I just want to thank our teachers up here for coming and you know, sharing your experiences, and really appreciate everything that you're doing for our students and the work that you're putting into learning new platforms and new programs. So thank you all very, very much. And you are welcome to stay. I shared some of the materials with you, but I know some of you have parental duties and soccer games to get to and other things. So thank you very much for being here today.
We would love for you to stay if you can.
But if you can stay, that'd be great.
Thank you, guys.
So, switching gears a little bit, I put up, we had shared with you a continuation from our last meeting about the selection of instructional materials, and I know we had made some suggestions as a committee. And just want to say a reminder, we are looking at policy. Guess I'll use this mic. We are looking at policy, but we are not the policy committee. So just to kind of clarify that our role is the curriculum committee, and so we're looking at these suggestions, and then hopefully we'll make a recommendation to bring forth to the policy committee. But just so that everybody's clear on our role, you know, we're making a recommendation to move something forward. So I have our suggestions here from the red line, and hopefully people got a kind of a chance to review it. And in going through our feedback and sort of meshing our original policy with some of the suggestions and conversations that we had at our last meeting, the main thing really was just moving things around so that it was easier to understand. You'll notice in the text there's a lot of blue. it was really just putting things in a different order so that it could be easily understood and read, and you didn't have to keep flipping back and forth between them. So if you want to start with 3200, we'll start with that one. And I just wanted to open it up for any thoughts or feedback from committee members who had a chance to review it, or questions that they had. So thoughts, questions, or if you noticed anything that you think didn't make it from our conversation last time into this version. Not everybody jump in at once.
Well, I can start. I had 2 board members email me their suggestions. They couldn't be here. So we can start with those just to break some ice. Policy 3200B.
All right.
I just got this, so I haven't had a chance to figure it out. There's a quote around including the Library Bill of Rights of the American Library Association. Can anybody find that in Part B?
Yep, so it's in that first paragraph of
Okay.
Part B, and it's in black text, which means it was in our original
Okay.
policy.
The comment was it's not necessary. Does anyone?
Committee
Does
member
anyone care?
thoughts on that?
I will let Dr. Johnson, I would assume that is,
I mean, it represents the philosophical view of the American Library Association, which is the philosophical view of most librarians, which is that a library is a place for everyone. We welcome everyone. We provide materials for everyone. We're here for everyone. So it would sort of break my heart to see that go out of the policy, because it is sort of the foundation of what a library is and what libraries do.
can we ask the question, what was their objection to it? Because
It just said that it's not necessary.
okay.
I think, like, in my reading of it, I know part of our clarification was that this policy is for both instructional materials as well as media center materials. Okay, I'm seeing some head nodding, so people are. You're right. Yeah, so I think also, like, to me, the way the semicolons read is like, the board educational goals would be for the instructional materials, and then the supplemental materials, and then that library Bill of Rights from the American Library Association would be the third part of this policy, which would be the library piece. I see some head nods, so that feels. The media collection, thank you, Jordan.
And if I remember correctly, when we were looking at the Cabarrus, policy, it was in theirs too. I mean, and I did some homework and looking at some other policies around the state, and this is included because this is just standard resource that librarians and media specialists use. So I can't imagine us wanting to take that out, but that's just, one board member.
Miss May, I know you had some notes about a particular, are you also looking in B?
Yeah, I mean, there's some commas that are needed. And then at 6, the last word is users, and I think it should be learners. Selection of resources appropriate for all learners.
Okay.
Tell me what part that is again.
Right here.
Part B,
B.
number 6,
B6,
the last word.
Oh, last word.
Question, if we don't include the word users, I was assuming that it has to do with like educators as well as learners, which is why I was assuming that they were using that language.
Perhaps stakeholders is a better word.
Stakeholders might be a better word, yeah.
Or patrons, well, that's the library word though.
Yeah.
Stakeholders is probably better.
And keep in mind, we try to stay as close to the North Carolina policies as possible, so it's probably users in the North Carolina policy. So we try not to change unless we have
Semantics,
to.
yeah.
Yeah, so if everybody's okay, let's stay with users.
Okay.
Since we can't do learners, because I like learners, but I see what you're saying. So we have to stay with that. I would say keep the black was already here. If you could remember that. I want to go back to the Bill of Rights because we left that, because I want to make sure when we take this policy to the policy committee that it is clear. What does this committee feel about that? Because I want to be able to say, this is what the committee, well, I won't be able to say it, but this is what the committee said. Does the committee want to leave this in?
I like
think
it.
it brings clarity to how we make decisions about materials that go in the library. And so I think it just gives another resource of, these were our guiding principles, and so, you know, we're looking at our board policy, we're in accordance with the law, with the First Amendment, and then this is all those are very broad, right? And this brings some clarity to this purpose and this material.
And I would just say, and I don't know what I would love to know the context of that, because I would just think about our librarians, and what would that say to them if we took this out? Because this is the core of their foundation. So that's why I had that question. So I would just say to ask that, because this really is at the core, am I correct?
Oh, absolutely.
And that's not a message I think this committee would want to send.
Is there anybody here besides you who knows what the guidelines in the Library Bill of Rights of the American Library Association mean?
I mean, you can Google it.
Yeah, that's what I was say. Somebody can pull it up.
I can pull it up there.
Yeah.
It wouldn't hurt
Yeah.
to know now. And so one of the reasons I'm bringing up, I mean, we have board members present, we have some that aren't here, but to bring up any objection they have, I'd rather bring it up now
Yes.
than bring it up later.
Yeah. I agree.
You know, y'all are here to answer questions now.
Yeah.
So while she's pulling that up, if we can look at letter B, number 1, and we struck out learning styles. And that seems to be odd to me because we want to differentiate that way.
Do you want me to address that, Dr. DeWalt? Or do you want to? She asked about why learning styles was removed.
Oh, yes, please.
If you, and this is something else you can Google, learning styles, for whatever reason, it's a term that's embraced in education. It has been thoroughly debunked. If you go online and you look up learning styles, there is tremendous research that shows that it's not a real thing. You may have a preference for the way you learn, but the actual theory that was presented years ago about learning styles and that many people just accept offhand is not real.
They just did some kind of big article or something about that recently, because
It's not, yeah.
it's been, I mean, it's what we learned, but.
If you just do a tiny bit of research, you'll see that it's a term that gets thrown around, but it doesn't have any actual research-based meaning.
Okay.
Yeah, it's something, well, I'm gonna say new, but I found out about it not too long ago.
I think it
But
is new
It's a
research.
big thing now that the research has come up that this is not what we thought it was.
I would say it's updated research,
Yeah.
right? It's not brand new, it's just in keeping with current research.
Yeah.
Okay.
And on that line in 3200 C2B, so C is just down from stakeholders. The very last sentence on, well, my page is written down.
Say it again?
3200 C2B.
The materials
Yeah, we
reliability.
took out the word well-balanced. Anyone know why?
Yes, because we added it somewhere else.
Okay.
That is a great question. Because we changed it to the contribution, the blue part, we moved the blue part from another section. So in clarifying that it contributes to the overall picture, that one item might not be well balanced. So like an individual book might not show both sides of something, but that the point is that it connects to a larger collection, whether in a library or whether presented to students through their core.
Remember we had the conversation, Will, if you have a book or you have something, sometimes if you're showing one viewpoint, you're gonna use this one book who has that viewpoint, then the teacher uses this book who has that viewpoint. But to say it all has to be in this book is unrealistic.
Question. What's the process to determine the principle, to place principle above personal opinion and reason above prejudice?
Where are you?
B6, F.
So we're
B6F?
Yeah, I want to.
3200 B6.
It's just 6,
Six.
excuse me, F eligible.
Okay.
6.
So I know from a library standpoint, that is that you create a collection that is balanced, that is not reflective of your own personal views, that you take into account everyone's views on a subject rather than just, like, I'm not going to buy any UFO books because I don't think kids should hear about UFOs. That it isn't my place in the world to decide what everyone else should learn. You put principle above your opinion, You put reason above your own prejudice, and you make the choices that are right for your population. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think in terms of selection of, that does make sense. I think in terms of selection of core materials and teachers that were part of adopting Study, Think, and Wisdom, or principals, feel free to jump in here, but it's also, it's looking at it really holistically. Does it meet the needs for our special education students? Does it meet the needs for our ML students? I might personally like this more, but I'm selecting this because it addresses the needs of XYZ population or group. So to me, it's also like in the, as it's an objective for selecting things, I might prefer some other program, but this is what's best for all of our students.
And that wasn't a change, right? That was already.
That was already there.
It's like a remove language.
We just changed collection to selection because we wanted to cover both media as well as core.
Okay.
But other teachers who were part of that process, if you want to add to that, feel free.
There's another one. C3, materials brought in by teachers. At the last meeting, guiding questions was the terminology we'll use, not rulers. When principals are discussing this topic with teachers, not rules. Sorry, I can't read my own writing. So.
Can you repeat one more time where you are?
C3, at the top of page 5, if you have our latest copy. Before we discuss that, though, we actually had, the attorney actually had a chance to look at some of this information, and he said that this was not necessary because it's already covered in the other part of the policy. True. So I would ask you guys, do you feel we need this in here?
Like all of section 3?
All of section C2. I mean, I'm sorry, C3, he said is already covered in C2. It was
Who said that?
The attorney.
I disagree. I think we do need something.
I disagree.
Yeah, I think we do need something. One of the things that I think the selection for media for the school libraries, that is overseen by the MTAC committee, and the core instructional materials is overseen by the district, and then the supplemental is district/teacher/principal. I think there needs to be clarity because we're moving from, that checklist to a different process for teachers. And I think what Ms. Bradford was going to say is last time we talked about having guiding questions. I don't think that in this policy, it makes it very clear as to what the process is for teachers, or whether actually, when I read it, I kind of felt like everything that teachers want to bring in as supplemental materials still have to go through a committee that I create as the school principal, as opposed to, the teacher making an objective decision based on thinking through the purpose of the materials, kind of like all the things we talked about last time.
So to address that, that's a very good point. And that's why, and think about, we have this is a policy, and the next thing we would do is we would have to do procedures.
Right.
And the guided question would be with the procedures for the teachers to actually think about. And if you put it in policy, it makes it so we can't tweak and make those changes the way that we need to make them.
But if you look at number 2 under the process, the second paragraph talks about unbiased selection tools. What does that mean?
Right.
Number 2, where?
Second paragraph, in coordinating the selection of resources, the committee should
okay.
use reputable, unbiased selection tools prepared by professional educators and should arrange blah, 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 blah. My question when I read that was, does that kind of go back to a checklist? What are we?
Like it needs some sort of explanation?
Or
Still 2 here.
The second paragraph.
Right here.
Page 3, right above letter A.
Okay, I got it.
So that's another piece that sort of feels like it's out of the library world, because we do have unbiased selection tools. We use reviews, there are a lot of tools that a librarian would go to for that, whereas I don't know what that looks like for instruction.
right, but this policy covers both. So like if I had teachers that are reading this, then they're going to try to figure out what unbiased selection tool are we supposed to use as a school-based committee to determine whether we can use a supplemental resource.
Yeah, and from the district, that's like the RFP process is the.
For the core.
Right.
Right.
But I see what you're saying, it doesn't cover all three.
Right.
It doesn't cover the supplemental part.
Well,
I guess,
I'm sorry.
No, go
It's not
ahead.
that it's not that it's not objective enough. It's that or subjective. It does. That's not it at all. It's that it doesn't necessarily apply for supplemental instructional resources that might be used in a classroom. It might for the core instructional materials, and it might for the media collection. But our classroom teachers, I'm not, like, no offense or anything, they don't care about how materials are selected for the media, and they don't really, like, they care about, I need to teach this lesson, and I need to use these materials, but I want to make sure I don't get in trouble, so what is it that I'm supposed to do?
Right. And this has always been here.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it needs to be here.
Right.
But, so, teachers, anybody want to speak to that? Anybody?
So, clarification, so like section B, objectives for selection of instructional materials, got 1 through 6. And we talked about it being beyond those 6 items, like more clarity, or is that kind of covering what we're?
So she's in the process part. Does that answer your question? Say your question again.
Process.
Who's an objection?
So I was taking that section that the principal is going to have a committee or a team that kind of presents what guidelines need to be used in order to select the materials. And so I guess I was assuming that section B kind of did that that's what we need to align. But what you're saying is maybe more specifics or different tools that need to be used to do that. Is that right?
Or a different process.
Or a
You know what,
different
I think, though,
process.
let's look at this again, and you know, it's kind of hard because we're looking at pieces, but if this is the process and this is the committee, is this not talking about our MTAC? Right, so if this is talking about the MTAC, so would the way we look at our MTAC, would that address that or no?
Well, I don't think, and this is just my
Yeah.
own professional opinion, I don't think that all instructional materials supplemental to classroom instruction need to go through MTAC.
Right,
I don't
right,
think MTAC is
right.
the appropriate, I don't think that's the appropriate placement for
It's
that.
impossible, isn't it?
Absolutely,
It's impossible, yeah. Mhm.
And I also don't think that all instructional materials have to go through a principal-created committee either.
Right.
And I think that's kind of where we landed last time, is that we need to give teachers more say. We need to give them some autonomy
Yeah.
to make professional decisions.
Yeah.
And so if we're saying there has to be an unbiased selection tool, what
And
is
see,
it?
I was thinking, and I'm glad we're having this conversation, I was thinking that was just for the materials that went to NTAC, right? So there's no way that we're gonna be able to bring a lot of stuff, all the stuff. You know, a teacher asked me, I had a teacher champion meeting, and she said, please share this. She teaches personal finance. And she said, I could be eating my breakfast and having coffee, and I am reading the paper. I'm reading the Wall Street. I'm reading about, you know, the financials and everything. And I'm going to use that in my class because it's current. There's no way I can do something to not, you know, I want to use this because this is what my kids need, but there's nothing that I can do, get to my principal, do anything for that. And I use like 300 pieces of that current material. 100 pieces is what she said, in about 3 weeks of that current material, because that is what's required by our state now with the personal finance, the finance literacy. So, and I know I kind of got off, but I think, and I guess that we shouldn't even worry about what we're thinking. What do we want to do about this? How do we clean this process up?
But I think to just go off of what you just said, and maybe I'm missing it in the policy, but I guess that's where there is a lack of clarity
Yes.
of what supplemental materials deserve review by a committee
Exactly
what I was
gonna say.
versus I can choose and you trust my professional opinion. As a teacher, I'd be like, do I give this to you? Do you need to look at it? I changed my mind last night, I wanna do this tomorrow.
I was going to say the exact same thing. So that section C is C1 is responsibility. So we have the district-wide, which is core, and we have school level, which is materials. What we don't have there is the responsibility for C, media center,
Yes.
or D, teacher brought in material. So I think it's more just, that stuff might be in here. I think it is more turning it blue and reorganizing. Where is that
Yes.
responsibility spelled out? And let's put it where we listed out responsibilities.
And
But
then
we
even
do
under
have
the
number 3 that
processes.
says materials brought in by teachers, so you suggesting to move that one to a different location?
I am suggesting where
Yeah.
it says C selection and then 1 responsibility.
Yeah.
We currently have A and B.
Uh-huh.
I'm suggesting we add C there to include responsibility for media, because this is also including our libraries.
I am.
So, Dr. Vaught, where are we?
Yeah, so,
Page 3.
page 3, underneath B, school level materials, I'm suggesting we put C, media center materials, and clarify the responsibility of that, and then D, teacher selected materials, or clarify the responsibility of what is district, what is school, what is teacher, what is media.
You know,
Yeah.
and I don't have, I guess my question is, I thought we did that last time. So I'm really, I
didn't.
thought
We
we were
did.
clear.
Well, we did, but it's not in
It didn't make it in here.
It's not in here, in clear terms.
Right.
But I also think that if this paragraph, in coordinating the selection of resources, that whole paragraph, if that applies to core instruction and media selection, then it needs to say that that's what it applies to, so that it's not under this umbrella for everything.
So can you recap what we just said we're gonna do? Because I wanna make sure, because it was the hope to take this to policy. And I just wanna make sure that we don't keep going, because we missed something last time, because
Yeah.
we talked about it last time, but evidently we missed it in here. Okay,
So under the selection of instructional materials, under
Okay.
responsibility, we're going to clearly identify the district-wide materials, which is already in there.
Okay.
And then the school-level materials, which is already in there. We're going to add a subsection for media, library materials. And that may have to be divided out if that's part of it already, but just to clarify what's, and then the teacher-selected materials. Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
I think, I will just say, in trying to capture all the notes from last time and moving everything, we did talk about it. I think that just didn't get moved into the responsibility section, so that will help.
But
I
so
think it
it's
just
in
becomes
there.
blue
So
and
where
moves.
where do you think it is? Because I want everybody to see it. Does anybody know, Dr. Johnson, do you think it's in here?
Maybe, I see media in section B under school level materials.
Because I know that's that would fall, you're gonna,
Like,
It's just,
MTech.
it's school level instructional materials and media are grouped in under school level materials.
Yeah, it does say
so we
both.
want to repeat it and pull it out is what we're saying.
Yes. Correct.
Okay, is everybody
Yes.
okay
And-
with that? All right. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about that last time, so I don't know how that.
and then for the
And then move the
process.
teacher part from its own section
Yeah.
under that and clarify the
Responsibilities?
thank you.
So when you say clarify, if we're adding new language, we need to talk about it. So if we add a new language somewhere, is that what we're saying?
I think
So
it's
just-
just moving.
To be clear, are we talking about we're still in C, now we're in number 3, materials brought in by teachers, we're going to move that up. But could somebody please repeat for me on what we said that the attorney says is not necessary? Because I am having a real hard time with that.
He said, policy 3200, the proposed revisions to this policy are helpful in setting forth factors concerning the selection of instructional materials. However, the committee might consider eliminating a separate section, C3, called materials brought in by teachers. Such materials are a subset of supplementary materials and are therefore already covered by section C2.
Yeah.
Which is where we would want to move it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
But,
so-
you cannot have too much clarity.
Yeah.
So,
that's
rather have too much than too little.
Yeah, I'd rather move it than get rid of it, is my personal.
Because I think we're getting lost, what if we look at page 1? right? So let's look at instead of people saying their comments, all right? So let's look at page 1. Were there any concerns about section, page 1 and definitions?
Are all library materials are not digital, so when we take out, when we strike out library materials in front of digital resources, does that make a difference? Very bottom, in A3, you have struck out library materials, digital resources, so.
I think library materials got its own section, excuse me, in number 2, right above
So we took it out.
So which is why it's removed from there.
Gotcha,
And
okay.
digital resources are standalone under supplemental.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, so, yes, go ahead.
Question. If I am an English 3 teacher and I do not have a systematically organized core instructional resource to use, what category do I fall under with what I'm curating for my class? Like, that's a question that we have high school, because we do not have curriculum for a lot of high school courses. So where do they fit in this?
That would be the teacher.
I know what I think, but I'm interested in Miss Sale, because that's her whole course, so I'm interested where you would say.
I'm there too, right. Right, so that's, I just want to be really careful with is, because it's not really a supplementary material, because that is my core, but it's not systematically curated and organized with like a curriculum adoption. So do all of their materials be materials brought in by teachers then?
Yes.
And
So I know, I'm like Dr. Jamal, I got a place that I think is addressed. Yeah, but you want to say, what are you ladies thinking? You're in the classroom, where did you go? You had that question?
Well, to her point, yes, I have like material that I create by me every single day for each unit. How can I implement this process and have this committee to review my links, videos, books, articles? So I'm just like trying to visualize how this process throughout the year. So if I'm planning to teach something tomorrow, as the teacher that you talked to before, how I'm gonna approach this? Am I going to wait for another 2 weeks, 3 weeks? Is there a timeline? How can we approach this? That's the question.
And that's my thoughts as well. It's like, if there's a committee that has to review it, or Mr. Sutton has to review all of it, he just can't do it.
Yeah.
And so, and there's so many courses that.
And I think that goes back to, I think it was Mr. McManus who asked the teachers, what can we take off of your plate?
Exactly.
Well, if we put a process like this in place, we're putting something additional on principal and school committee members' plates. So I do think we need to be really mindful about that.
Yeah, well, it's unrealistic, right? So I just think we need to clear it out, and this is what my question is to that. Go to page 3, number B. It's like, to me, school level materials. To me, we stop it at the red to address that. Read the red part and stop at principal and see if it would address that.
So if a school decides all English 3 teachers are going to do it, I feel that addresses that. If a school decides, because it's school level materials, so if we decide in English 3 at New Hanover, we will all have the same materials for English 3, I feel it addresses that.
No, well, I think even if it's not all materials, because it's school level materials. So you could use it for English 3, you could use this novel, I can use this one. I'm asking.
Yeah.
I interpret B, if you stop at principal, right, and we make it and we do some changes, that means that the principal and the professional staff, the teachers, make that decision. There is no way we can put a committee in place. There's no way we can put steps in place for an English 3, a French teacher, a Spanish teacher, a history teacher. They have no core curriculum. There is no way we can put something in place and our students still get what they need. And that's the ultimate goal.
Can we move that material brought in by teachers and add it to the school level material?
Right, because that seems like that's what you were just saying.
Yeah.
that it's the same.
Yeah, I mean,
Were you
yeah,
just
so,
saying that's
yeah.
the same?
So it's like, It says, principal shall establish rules consistent with the NC standard course of study concerning what materials may be brought in by teacher without committee review.
Right, exactly. And that's that. So that's all of what you're saying along, because there's no way we can do anything different. I mean, if somebody has a way that we can do something different, I guess.
Yeah, and I think it then falls to the principal, just like we would with anything. If I have a teacher that has had no issues for 5 years and everything's great, and then I have a teacher where there's something where I need, hey, you know, before you do X, Y, just let's review that together. Just like I would if there was a teacher that had no behavior issues in their class, one way or the other. You're gonna support and differentiate where you need to as the principal, but that doesn't burden the teachers that don't necessarily need that. And there's just not enough time to do that for every teacher. You would work with the ones that need that guidance and support, and the ones that are flying on their own, I think you let them go.
And I think in your case particularly, you have a lot of teachers at Mosley who are siloed, right? They're the only person in the building teaching that, and so there's not even necessarily a committee.
Well, we have two principals here, and I agree with both of them. I'm old enough to remember when some principals required lesson plans from every teacher on Friday, like they really could read those during the weekend. Every single one of them. What a joke. So this is kind of the same thing. If it is necessary, it will come to you. I mean, and so I don't think it needs to be so well defined that it becomes another added expectation. And if you miss it one time, now, well, why did you miss it? It says right here. I just think you can't. You have to be careful with the parameters that you draw.
Yeah, exactly.
Because this is a whole different world when you're dealing with classroom instruction.
It sounds like we're all in agreement with Ms. Sales' suggestion then.
So let's go back to, before we jump around, so does that go in B? Does that go back to page 2? That goes in B, right?
Yeah, that includes also the modification assignment or materials for AC students too. So is that gonna go through review? For modification, accommodation for exceptional children?
When this language has everything. Because it says,
it would be
we can't, because you don't want to say for ML kids, for, this is everything. This is the principal is responsible, and the teachers, they're going to be the professionals and make those decisions. So when we look at B, objections for selection of instructional material, are we changing anything there? Because I've gotten lost, and I'm asking you guys. I'm just walking through the process. Are we changing anything there?
I think she's asking to move
teacher selection.
Yeah, materials
move
brought
the
in
lab,
by
the
teachers.
school
Correct.
lab materials to
Three.
have materials brought in for teachers, move that up to
Yeah.
B.
Okay,
Where
so-
in B, I don't know. but
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so
think
move
that's
that,
what she-
so move
I think
that
it
to
could
B.
go after principal, right?
And then.
I'll read like letter and number it to make that clarification that it'll be, core, supplemental, teacher, and media, using the language that ends with, that's currently in B, school level materials, and ends at principal.
So number 3 will go under B.
Correct.
Are you gonna pull media out of B?
And then, yes, that would
Pull media
become
out.
C.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
So the only
Thank
thing
you.
I would ask again is, what's in currently 3, right after principals in black, shall establish rules. Rules is not the word that we had talked about last time. We used guiding questions, or principal would establish guiding questions consistent with an NC standards.
Guiding questions.
But remember, the guiding questions are part of the process and the procedure. So instead of saying that, because that's not just the only thing they need to do, they need to have, so it should be the principal shall establish a process or procedure. Because that's just one step. They need to do more than just that.
Yes.
A process or procedure
Okay.
consistent with.
Yes.
Okay.
Procedure
Okay.
consistent
Yeah.
with policy
Right.
30,
Yeah.
Okay.
I like that.
Okay, all right.
Got it. Before we, is there anything, we haven't talked at all about section D, so before we move to 3210, can we look at section D?
What about C? Are we taking, we're totally taking D
There's a
out?
typo in B, I don't know if you want to fix that. It's like a word is missing. And
Say again?
On page 2, section B, number 4, to provide materials, resources. I don't know if it's supposed to be and or something in there.
Can you say it one more time, Sarah?
So
Right here. Provide materials.
B4, to provide
And.
materials, resources, it looks like, is it a missing word?
It's missing a slash,
Okay,
yeah.
I just want to make sure.
So, Dr. Watt, before you go to D, so we're done with C? Okay, good, okay.
I
So we
think
didn't
so.
need to do anything different with C? Committee?
Because C's going.
Ladies, C's
Yeah,
fine?
C, because C's moving.
C's moving.
C's moving, yeah. So I don't think we need to
C's
keep
going
talking
to
about
B.
it.
Oh, all of C's?
Yes. Yep. But if people want to keep talking about it, we're, I'm
Yeah, if
open.
we can break it, if we can break it between the media collection and the supplement material.
Yes,
Yes, they,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, so one of the things I think for D, as we're clarifying in B, breaking it out into those sections, I think clarifying in D, also under core, supplemental, and media, I think would help add some
Yes.
clarity to D. Okay, I see head nods.
Yes.
Thank you, Alicia.
I think if you're gonna do it in the other sections, it only makes sense to continue
Yeah.
it, so it just keeps everything in the same structure throughout the whole policy.
Great. Core, supplemental, and media. And it kind of already has that, like 2 is, like 1 is about core and supplemental and 2 is about media, but it's not written in the same process as everything else is. So there are other D.
I thought these two both talked about the superintendent's authority.
Will you say it loudly?
Yeah, I thought in D2 and D3 both talk about the superintendent's authority.
And you think we
Is that where I
should,
put
you
that?
think we
Oh, no,
should
no,
keep that?
A and B, number 1 and 2. I don't know, I thought it was redundant because both talk about that same thing.
Committee, are you? Committee, did you hear that question?
No.
So she's saying D1 and D2, both have the superintendent has the ultimate responsibility for removal, may unilaterally remove things, right? Gives the superintendent his authority there. And so, and then in 2, it talks about establishing additional procedures. So she's saying that felt redundant.
Like
Is
it's
that-
in 2 different places where it might make sense for it to be together.
And I'm kind of having trouble with the unilaterally, because the superintendent's in charge of our whole district, but we have policies in place, so kind of like the checks and balances of the legislative, the judicial system, so I don't like the word unilaterally.
And that entire red section, basically all of 1, is what we borrowed from our other county.
Yeah, I didn't like it in there either.
Responsibility of, it's not just that he can do this, it also puts the owner, the responsibility on it too. So I don't.
The second one is about the library collection.
Yeah.
The superintendent may establish
think
procedures to
that's why
provide
they're
additional
separate.
standards for removing library collection materials. And the first one is
Core
materials.
materials.
So it does seem like it
Yeah.
needs to be in both places.
Yeah, but we could take the language of 2 that's in, so the last sentence in D2, and we could make that be the same sentence, except instead of library, it would say core materials, and put that up in section 1, so that it's consistent.
I mean,
I'm sorry to hear.
it's not nearly as in-depth.
Or you could have the same, if we're breaking everything down by core, media, supplemental, and teacher, then maybe this needs to be core, media, supplementary, and teacher, and whatever the authority is of the superintendent needs to match and be the same for each of those 4, 3 of the 4 subsections, potentially.
I could live with either one. I'm not.
Like, I don't care.
Live with either one of those?
Going back to what you said there, that clarity, we can't have enough. So I think that if it's mentioned in each section.
I'd use the longer one rather than the shorter one, and we can always amend, but rather to have too much clarity than not enough and have to go to recommend for that. The last thing we want to do is end up in a situation again.
Is the district committee referenced in this one, in 3200?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I want to address, because I know there was a discussion about putting,
Where is that?
the board appointing, people to the district committee.
I think it's in, might be in 3210.
Okay, so I just want to.
I think it's in 3210.
Okay, so you want me to wait till we get to 3210?
Yeah, I think so. I could be wrong.
No, that's fine.
Thankfully, 3210 is short.
All right, any other discussion on D? All right, how about E and F on the last page, page 6?
So, yeah, question, the, when we struck out supplementary and put instructional, the, most of, this is my supposition, is that most of the gifts that would be given to the school system probably aren't going to be instructional material or curriculum material. They're going to be books that they have from home. You know, so should we not leave supplementary in there? I mean, I'm trying to think of who would give instructional material to a school system, like another school system or a college?
Yeah, UNCW gives us gift books every year.
Okay.
Of whatever ones, I don't know how that's just.
Instructional just covers more than just supplemental. So, like personal finance, right? If somebody gifted personal finance, that would be that teacher's core. It wouldn't be a supplemental material for them, but it would be an instructional
Can we
material.
put both,
Or
instructional and supplemental? Because we're talking about clarity and we're talking about breaking down A, B, C, D in each category. So I would hate to take out supplemental materials.
Or do we need the language at all? Do we need that adjective? Like materials?
Just materials.
Yeah.
I think covers both. Instructional materials could be supplement, could be core, both. Is it-
Yes.
Supplemental materials are instructional materials.
Yes, so both of them covers either core.
Right, and that was the shift to make it instructional instead of supplemental, but I'm also, I
them
think if
both
we
out.
just strike it and just start with materials.
Yes. Yes.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I like that.
All right. I think we're ready to go to 3210.
Great. I'm gonna, do you want to start us off, Dr. Faison, and I'll pull it up on the screen?
So 3210, and I think,
You want to start with us?
Yeah.
Okay, 3210.
so 3210, and I'm gonna go page,
From the beginning.
from the beginning. So is there anybody who has a question or something that needs to be addressed on page 1?
Go for it, May.
Well, okay, so I'm sorry, I won't read in advance next time. But I don't know that
We're supposed to do that.
All right,
This is so hard not to get it in advance.
All right, so in A, materials which will be used in connection with any survey, my question was about the Parents' Bill of Rights and whether parental consent needs to be a part of this at all.
Well, I think because we addressed the Parent Bill of Rights and we know we have to do that, I don't know, what does the committee think?
Well, I'm not even saying that we need to put anything, that was just the only thing with the
Yeah,
word
I mean, I know,
survey.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
like,
because you know you have to, I know, surveys about, yeah.
yes.
So the where it says state SB 49, that is the Parents' Bill of
cool,
Rights.
okay.
So that is added in there. That's okay.
There it is.
You don't have all our laws memorized? You can see how I spend my free time.
Anything else in that?
Anything else on page 1?
I would just put a comma after, once the form is received by the school principal, comma, the school media center.
Where is it?
Under process, the 1, 2, third sentence.
Okay.
Oh, once the form is
Easy.
received.
Comma, yes.
Oh, let me say this, and then you can walk through the process. There was I know, a comment from, I think the board member, suggested or wanted to put appoint, the board appoint.
Oh, yeah, it was. Actually, 2 board members that aren't present brought up the same thing, and it was under 3210B3. So is that where we are? Okay. They said, where it says committee appointed by the superintendent, that would do we want to consider the board to appoint 1 or 2 committee members? And so, since 2 people brought it up, I thought I'd throw it out here now, rather than save it to, voting night.
Are you talking
So
about
I
3?
She's talking about the district committee.
But what's the number and letter again?
B3.
B3.
Can we
So-
hold that thought and do 2
Thank you.
Let me- I want to make sure I get that. So what I want to just say is that that's a district committee. So board members don't normally appoint to the district committee. Is there a reason? What specialty, am I correct about that?
No, and the reason that you wouldn't appoint a board to a district level committee
Because it might appeal to
is
the board.
because it
Yeah,
might get
that's-
appealed to us. So
that was my
we
next
can't
thing,
know
yeah.
all of this going on. We can't know the details. We can't be involved.
That was my next thing.
I said it wrong then. This is the board sitting and saying, I nominate Sally Smith, I nominate, Bruce Johnson,
But you
not
don't have-
nominate themselves.
Right, but this is a district committee. You can't do that on this committee.
You can't do that.
That's for your board committees. So I don't know if you have a board.
We do not have a board committee.
Yeah, this is a district committee, and
So board members can't appoint to a district committee, is that what you're saying?
as I know, I mean.
No,
yeah,
because that would imply some sort of bias somewhere. And we don't know their work ethic. We don't know where they are in relationship with their principal. I mean, I could say, "Oh, I love you. I love that outfit. Let's put her on." She says good things at meetings. Yeah.
We have a lot of district committees, and we have been given the professional courtesy of doing our own district committees, because especially a committee to this nature. And I guess my question would be with that one is, what special or expertise would the person that you would want to appoint would bring that the team would not?
I don't know. It wasn't my
Yeah,
suggestion.
that would be a question that I have, because we have, if there's a type of person or something that you would want our committee to consider, feel free to share it with us.
Okay, I will. Hopefully those board members are listening, or will listen in the future, and they will get that and not bring that up in the actual meeting that we vote on.
No, that's just because this is a district committee. The board committees are different.
We skipped on page 2, section 2. So can we just jump back to that? I just want to, if there were any changes to that section, I wanted to make sure I captured them.
I think this is yes. No, yes. Where does this come in? We have a suggestion from the attorney, and I don't know where it goes. He didn't say, but let me just read it. The proposed revisions to this policy are helpful to set forth the 3-step process: 1 school, 2 district, 3 board. So that's right where it is. However, the committee might consider substantive changes to the language to be consistent with the court's decisions and the North Carolina statute concerning the circumstances under which instructional materials will be removed. Remember, we had 3 things that we had to either prove or disprove: educational unsuitability, number 2, pervasively vulgar, or 3, inappropriate to the age, maturity, or grade level of the students. I can give you this, Dr. DeWalt. And he is suggesting that we would insert that language just so that we're consistent with what the law is and what the courts are ruling. It's already consistent in advance. It's already in our policy.
So maybe where it says, in part 2, where it says, may be removed only for legitimate educational reasons, the reasons would be aligned to the legal precedent around where something is removed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that, if I entered it there, would that read well for people?
Yeah.
Where are we
Dr.
talking about
DeWalt,
putting
can you read
it?
those
Number
again?
2 in the blue?
Yeah.
Just before the blue, still in the black, last couple of words, right after reasons.
So right after, for legitimate educational reasons, the legitimate educational reasons would be aligned to legal precedent, is a suggestion of our lawyer, and that would be,
You see it?
Second page at the top.
if it's educationally unsuitable, pervasively vulgar, or inappropriate to the age, maturity, or grade level of the student.
I have a problem with that. Who decides that?
Well, that would be decided by first the school-based MTAC, then the district MTAC, and then if it was further appealed, the board. If the board chose to have that appeal.
So was the superintendent, because he's the next in line after MTAC goes through the whole system? And if you're gonna start a district MTAC, does the superintendent?
We already have a district intact, so
Right.
we have district intact.
But is
He
he gonna
appoints
have the
that.
final word since he is the superintendent and he's in charge? or-
Yes.
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 Okay.
And then it comes to
Yes.
us.
We'll make sure I heard.
He uses the district intact to, yeah.
All it's really doing is sort of clarifying legitimate educational reasons to line up with what the courts are saying are legitimate educational reasons.
And that also actually happens in section 3 under appeals. It repeats again because the school would have to consider those legitimate reasons, and then the district committee would have to consider those same legitimate reasons. So I think for consistency, you would want it in both
And this
spaces.
is all based on parents' objection, right? This is where it's.
3210 is
This is the
parental
appeal
objection.
process. This is the
Yes.
appeal process.
May I ask
yes.
about the wording, regulate its availability? That wasn't in our old policy, was it?
Say it again.
Where the choices are remove the material, place it in another grade band, or regulate its availability, is that new language?
It is the red section under part 2.
What does regulate its availability mean?
That is actually language that we took from the procedure, the current procedure on the form that we have. That's the last one that's listed. So I just moved it for alignment.
And you think about it, and when we talked about it, the principal would have the principal or the district would have a variety of choices to do. They could say that it can't be in this section, it can't be in the media center, or it can only be in the media center. When you say regulate availability, it's a wide range that the board would have and the principal would have at the school level. But we did get it directly from the form.
Yeah, and it's got to be in policy because this is the exact language that we had to deal with in that appeal that we heard. You have, these are the 4 possible outcomes.
Correct. It's currently in our process. It was not in our policy, but it was already in our process.
Yeah.
I have a question about any further appeal, number 3, appeals. Any further appeal of the decision of the district MTAC committee will be determined by the board. Did we say that the board cannot, is it okay for the board to select
We're
MTAC
last.
committee?
No, that's what we said, the board will not want, that's why we were saying that 2 reasons. First, it's a district committee, and the board doesn't select district committees, and it would be crossing a line because it's gonna come to them. So if they put these people on.
So we cross that?
So.
No,
no,
so
no,
they
no,
can-
no, no, no,
stays.
it-
I think
it stays there.
Is your question that, so once it goes to once they've appealed to the district committee, right, and the district committee has given their
recommendation,
their answer, right, the superintendent gives that on behalf of the district committee, then if any further challenge, the board could say, yes, we will accept this appeal, or the board could say, no, we don't accept another appeal.
May I ask at what ground? Like, how do you gonna?
How would they
is that
decide?
by voting, or how it works?
It's just by voting.
By voting?
Yeah, we don't have to hear any appeal.
Okay.
Do I need to put by vote on here, or is that
No.
implied?
No.
Okay. Anything else from 3210? You're right, Ms. Bradford, it's a much shorter policy.
Yes. And as we're doing this, I would say under revised for both of them, October 2023 is not going to be the revision date, obviously, because we're not getting to it.
Yeah. Before we wrap up and Dr. DeWalt wraps up, first of all, I want to just remind the teachers who are here and everyone who is here. First of all, thank you for everything. Thank you for your feedback, whether you gave it earlier, whether you said something today. But I do want to remind you, because I don't want you, I want you to know, we will be bringing, Ms. Bradford is our representative. She knows what we want. She will be taking this to the policy committee. Okay? We've had our voices, we've said it, so we are hoping the policy committee follows and listens to our guidance, but this is their curriculum committee. Now it goes to the policy committee, and she's our representative in that. So I say that to say, do you have any more questions for this committee? Because you will be representing our voice.
Well, two things, two comments, really. And for audience and people listening as well, it's established that we're in this position because in 2020, if I'm not mistaken, an event happened where a teacher did cross the line with material they brought into the school. And, or two, more than one did, but there was one particular incident, and it reached the level to where policy had to be created. And the checklist, the checklist that you all love, and we found out by talking to you that you weren't using, it was created as a reaction to that teacher getting outside of their boundaries. So the public is going to be interested in how we're going to establish lanes, boundaries that teachers don't get out of. And I think that we've got a really good start here on this. I really do. But people should understand that this is going to replace the quality checklist. And you won't be held responsible for that, and then you won't be in trouble because you didn't do it. But at the same time, I'm going to take this to the board. I can't make the decision for the board. It's going to take all 7 of us to agree and not throw up some giant roadblocks. So I'm hoping that the board members that are present, if you have objections, that you would talk about them now rather than later. Because this is the time we have these experts here that can answer the questions. I won't be able to answer the questions when we get to policy or when we get to the general board meeting, and that's where we're going.
Well, from another member of the policy committee's point of view, is I'm not going to be able to commit to not having questions because you're going to wordsmith this again, and you're going to take the original policy 3200 that's already on our books, and then you are going to strike out or insert. We're not going to have red and blue.
Correct.
We're going to have, this is what we want it to say. And so, because we've talked around in circles a lot of good information, where are we, where do we stick it in, it's going to be hard to make that commitment right this minute for the November 21st meeting if it's not clear exactly what we changed.
Thank you for bringing that up. And the blue text was for this committee to see where I just moved things.
Yeah.
But when it goes to policy, it'll be back to black text because it'll be the text that was in the original.
Yeah, because
policy.
but our policy committee also has the same issues as looking at things that are a lot of different colors. Who did that? Where did it come from? So basically, everything's coming from you guys. Everything is coming from you guys. So it'll either be black or red, and however you organize it is fine. But we've done a little bit of reorganizing here, so it's hard to say, yeah, I'm good with it when I haven't seen the final product. And I didn't even get to see this final product before, so to even formulate my thoughts, you're kind of reading in there. So that's just, I wanted to just throw that out there for that.
So can I ask this question, because that makes a lot of sense, but can you think about the process that we talked about?
Oh, no, I'm happy with the process.
Okay.
Yeah, no, this process was awesome. And all the work that you guys put into it was fabulous because you really looked at it and made it flow and took all that to heart. So I'm not contradicting or disputing or bad-mouthing any of that.
Dr. Brawl, it might be in policy changes in municipalities, typically, and at least one board member down there is really fond of seeing this, leave the strikeouts, leave the new language, leave the original language, leave your colors, because Mr. Wildeboer is the only board member that hasn't been a part of this process at this point. But it's so much easier when you're under pressure to look and say, oh, that was a part of the original policy. Oh, this was inserted. Oh, this is being struck. And so you've already got it in this document that you redlined now. So why not just keep with that and not do all black? So we have to wonder where that come from, when was it added, was it original? So we will skip that whole part. It'll be real easy to see what was moved from somewhere else in this policy and what's being struck and what's being added. It might make the process go much faster.
When we were reviewing and doing the transition from old policy to new policy, when there was a lot of movement like this, pretty much everything was struck out and the new stuff was put in, so that you had a chance to read it in its continuity. It's really hard to go back and say, well, this came from here, did you get all the words? So think about that.
It's very helpful. So I would say, since you've already got it started, stay with what you have. And then after the policy committee meeting, it still probably needs to stay like that, just because then we're in a full board meeting. So probably going to have to run all the way through the process this way.
Maybe to better prepare you all, right, we can have, this is already created, so this is already here, and then we can also have the red line version, and you all can have access to both. Like, if you want to see it without the...
But some of this has to be posted online for the public to look at too.
Because we probably need to stay the same, so we probably need to say what we normally do.
I would just say for me, if it's stuff that you're just moving around, I don't need to see it blue.
Blue, that's just, yeah, we probably
The
need to do
strikeouts
red
are
line,
more
yeah.
important to me than anything, because that's the difference. I want to see the difference.
Strikeouts and new words are really important to us.
Yeah, we'll stay with the same way we've been doing it, just the red and the strikeouts. This was just for the committee.
Yeah.
So will these policies be in the policy committee, will they be discussed and voted on, or will they be voted on without discussed, as I have observed?
Well, policy committee, it'll come to us, we'll look at it, we'll have a three-person discussion, get input from Dr. Faison, because you would be the one that would be there with us, and then we would vote there to move it to the whole board. And that meeting is November the 21st. So it won't, this isn't going to happen, before December.
It's not a first reading, right, because it's an amended policy.
Right.
So it's just for the, yeah.
All right. Thank you, committee, for being here today and for your input in this process. I will make these changes and reshare it out with everybody on the committee as well.
Thank you. Great work, you guys.
Maybe just share it with the whole board. Okay, all right.